Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Lori Tucker. Glad you're with us. You know, we knew it was coming, but now it is official. Knox County Commissioner Larson Jay formally launching his campaign for Knox County Mayor. And matter of fact, he joins us now to talk about this. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, you know, you may have just made this official announcement. Well, we've kind of known for a while, and you've kind of known for a while that this is what you wanted to do. Actually, a little more than a year now. So, the big question is, why do you want to be Knox County's next mayor?
Well, this is a great opportunity to continue my focus on public service and extend my time as county commissioner really in the next level, for moving from the legislative side to the executive side. And there's really no better time to lean into public service than right now in Knox County. We have all the great ingredients for a world-class and community, but it takes executive leadership and a skill set ready to tackle those big challenges. I think I'm ready, and I'm happy to throw my name in the hat officially.
All right, we'll talk about those big challenges in a moment, but first, you are the only certain candidate right now, but embattled School Board Chair Betsy Henderson says she is actively considering a run. What is your response to that?
Well, sure. I think other people will run for this office. I mean, it's certainly the primary is a year away, and other people will run. I encourage anybody who cares about public service and cares about Knox County to lean in, put their name in the hat, and see how it goes. You
know, you have said that you really like the way Mayor Jacobs has led our county, but there are differences as well. What would you do differently than him?
Well, I think the difference that I would bring to the table is looking at the next 20 to 40 years. And I think Mayor Jacobs has done a really good job. We worked hand in hand on lots of projects to tackle the things that we're doing now. I think the evolution of the county executive or the county mayor is to start now shifting to what will Knox County look like 20 or 40 years from now? What can we do in the next 4 to 8 years to get ready for that substantial growth and changes in our community and tackle those big challenges? It's really a continuation of running the business well, which I think Mayor Jacobs has done, but now shifting to what's next and what's in the future, and how do we really prepare for that?
You know, this has come up before. I don't know if it'll ever come up again. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Knoxville is growing, Knox County is growing, but the two forms of government,
sure.
Can you peacefully coexist?
Yeah, absolutely.
And do we need both?
Well, the city and the county can certainly work together on so many different things. Do we need both? That's a debate for a much, much bigger discussion. And I know metro government's been tried time again, but we do have united and services that are going on right now. We have our library system, our health department, our school system. So there are things where we're working together, and certainly our most important one, business development. That's something the city and the county work together on every single day. So it takes two executives to work side by side to find those great challenges and tackle them.
How do you walk that fine line of people who originally came to this area because of the landscape, the rural feel, if you will, now knowing that growth is not only happening, it's going to continue?
Absolutely. Well, Knox County is the third largest county in all of Tennessee, and we have to remember that. We are a metro county. Now, we do have rural areas, suburban areas, and urban areas, but there are 88 or 89 counties where there's not a lot of people in Tennessee. We are not one of those, and as a metro community where people do want to come and live, and where we are the regional headquarters, we have to act like it, we have to understand it, and we have to embrace that growth and embrace what comes along with that growth, the growing pains of a burgeoning community.
Yeah, people, speaking of growing pains, we hear every day by email, phone call, we're bursting at the seams. Would you characterize it that way, or is there room to grow?
I don't think we're bursting at the seams. I think people are now feeling that growth. For so long it was not as saturated, but it's getting more and more saturated every day. And look, in the last 20, 30 years, we've grown by 50%. Okay, that feels different than it used to, even in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Now we have to prepare for what will that growth look like, but people are feeling it. I don't think we're bursting at the seams. There's certainly not going to be a drawbridge we're going to pull up. Now we got to figure out how to welcome people, how to bring great jobs, great economy, great people from all over, and then, embrace the growth and find a way through it.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to Mayor Jacobs. And one thing that everybody notices, he is a popular mayor, but he's usually on his own. It's kind of a non-traditional way that he goes out and greets people. You don't see him with his wife often, sometimes certainly, sure. But you're often with Adrian, who used to work here. We'll talk more about that, your wife and your kids. So let's talk about the differences in how you want to portray yourself?
Well, I've always been somebody who's attracted to being in the trenches and out in the community across the board, whether it's a trash cleanup day or it's a policy meeting or it's a community event. And it has been part of our family because service is part of our family. I come from a multi-generational veterans family and military family, but Adrian and I and our children, we have always said, what can we do to be helpful? And we've always leaned in together. And that might be Cub Scouts, but it also might be the chili cook-off. It might also be, the community fair. We just go and find ways to serve together. And I think that's always been who we are. It's certainly nothing that's going to change.
You and your family went through something really tough several years ago. You almost lost your life. You and I have talked about that in previous interviews. How did that change you?
Yeah, in 2007, I survived a near-fatal accident, and actually it was the second time that I'd almost died. And it wakes you up when you go through a near-death experience. And what it did for me is it shifted my focus from success to significance. I got to have my midlife crisis at age 33 instead of 53. And so it focused me on time as the most valuable commodity. What do we do? What's the impact we make? And never taking anything for granted. That eventually led to public service in a more formal way, which I never expected to do. But I love it. I love helping others. And I really, since that day, all through my recoveries and many surgeries, I've just woken up saying, how can I be helpful today? And it's a great compass to be able to find a way to help other people.
Where would you be now not having had that accident?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I was a film and television producer for over a decade. I had great experiences in the private sector, public sector. I have no idea, but I am where I am today. I'm looking forward to what do I do next to be helpful and maybe help lead Knox County.
One of the things that was an outgrowth of your recovery was the birth of Random Acts of Flowers.
Yeah, great organization.
That really helped cement your name, don't you think?
Well, yes, in the way that it is an organization that constantly says, how do I help someone else in the most vulnerable, hardest time? And that really, Random Acts of Flowers came from the experience I had in the hospital where I got overwhelmed with support and flowers. And I looked around and wheeled around in the halls and realized there's so many people that had no family, no friends. And in our nursing homes, our hospital cares, our senior centers, hospice, there are so many people alone at a vulnerable time. And if you can take something that is going to be thrown away and recycle, repurpose it, and bring it to somebody and just say, keep smiling, I hope you feel better. If you can affect that mental health, which I know will impact the physical health, you can do great things. And it has been an amazing organization to build. I ran it for about 13 years, have passed the torch, continued to support it, and now it's nationwide. And I'm so proud of the work they do because they keep it simple and keep it focused. Help one person, do it again, and do it again.
Keep that message simple.
Keep it simple.
That's where the growth
Absolutely.
came in. As county commissioner, I have to ask you, what are you most proud of?
We have done so much. I started to sort of assemble all the things I've done over 7 years as a county commissioner in my 2 terms. And there are countless projects and ways we've helped people neighborhood to neighborhood. I think the 3 biggest projects that I can really say are my most proud points are the Beaver Creek cleanup project that we continue to work on. Unites 5 different communities. It helps open our waterways, clean up our environment. It's a great project. Our North Shore pedestrian and safety project that's connecting our parks and greenways so people don't have to play Frogger across really busy highways and get to their parks and neighborhoods. And then our civics education program with our junior commissioners to be able to engage high school juniors and seniors and introduce them to local government and tell them why it's so important, show them in a hands-on way and sort of engage them in civics leadership. I couldn't be prouder of them and the impact they're making in their families and their neighborhoods.
And do you feel this is really propelling them in leadership? I ran into you at the Scouts dinner, that big dinner, and you were talking with one of your junior commissioners who was there.
Yeah, I really do because they're seeing why local government is so important, why it's so close to your family, your home, your school, everything you engage with on a daily life. And they're starting to understand that their voice matters. And if they can just get involved now, they can nudge this community in dynamic ways. And you can't do that if you're screaming at Nashville or Washington. But right here in Knox County, they can really get involved and make a difference.
Interesting program. Will it go on after you're gone?
Absolutely. We're in our 3rd year, and we have a succession plan for how to have more commissioners step up and lead it going forward. I think it'll be great. And that's what I'm most attracted to, those practical, tangible projects that will live on far beyond me, whether it's Random Acts of Flowers before I became involved with politics, or now the junior commissioner Greenway projects, cleaning up Beaver Creek. There's so many other things. if you can see it, if you can feel it, if you can experience it, and then leave a legacy behind you, you've done a good job in politics.
Yeah, and having said that, if you're elected mayor, what is the one thing you want to change?
The one thing I want to focus on, I mean, there's about 50 of them, but the single biggest one is our growth in infrastructure. We are so far behind in our deferred maintenance and our road maintenance and our road widening, installing turn lanes, roundabouts, safety things, everything that involves moving people, goods, and services. We are so far behind. We've got to catch up quickly. We've got to invest quickly, and we've got to prepare for the next 20 to 40 years. So growth in infrastructure when it comes to roads and the way we move around Knox County. 500,000 people wake up every single day and bring their kids to school, go to work, build a business, and we've got to keep them moving, and we've got to invest heavily in that right away.
Larson J., thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
We appreciate it. And everyone, want to remind you the primary takes place next spring. The general election is August 2026. Of course, we'll be covering it, talking to Larson J. more. Our panel of pundits weighs in coming up next. Stay with us. We're back in 90 seconds. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. We're glad you're with us. You know, a moment ago, we heard from Knox County Commissioner Larson J. after he formally launched his campaign for Knox County Mayor. Now let's bring in our panel of pundits to discuss what he had to say. Joining us, Courtney Piper, Craig Griffith, and Michael Covington. I'm glad to get to work with you all today.
Glad you're here.
Thank you, Lori.
Glad I'm here.
What is your top of mind when it comes to our discussion with Larson J?
Well, in full disclosure, I've supported Larson in his races for county commissioner. And the reason I did that is mainly the same reasons I'm supporting him would be supporting for him for county mayor is he's forward looking. He wants to look at the issues that we're going to have 10, 20 years down the road. Because we can't address those when they hit us in the face. We have to take the steps now to plan for the future growth of the community. And as he said, his number one priority is the infrastructure. And I think that that's one of the things they have to address if we're going to have this influx of population that they keep talking about. So I think that's where he stands. And of course, I met him actually first time when I was working at St. Mary's through the Random Acts of Flowers program, which was I saw how that helped patients on a daily basis. So lots of good things, and it'll be interesting to see who runs against him and what the platforms of the various candidates are.
All right, we'll talk about who may be running against him in just a second. We talked about Betsy Henderson. We'll delve deeply into that. But Courtney, what did you think?
What struck me about Larson J's commentary is it was extremely pragmatic and very community focused and not incredibly partisan. And that's how we have seen him govern in his terms as county commissioner. Community first, very pragmatic. And how that seems to be helpful in serving the county is we're about to go off of a financial cliff thanks to the Ragsdale administration. We've all heard how the Ragsdale administration took out these ARM bonds, or I guess would be an ARB, like an adjustable rate bond, and the principal is coming due. And so our debt payments are about to skyrocket, which will severely impact our ability to address these infrastructure problems, which is causing us so much consternation when it comes to growth. And if we have a leader that can take a very pragmatic approach, community-focused approach to that problem that we're about to face, we will all be better served for it.
All right, Michael.
Quite honestly, every time I hear a Larson J speech, I think it was perfectly written and perfectly delivered. He is a skilled politician. He checks all the boxes. He talks about the things that voters and citizens would appreciate having happen. Infrastructure, working on our roads, working on making sure that Knox County is as livable as it can be. I do think, however, that a speech is not all that's gonna determine who the next mayor will be. I do not know Larson J. I can say that honestly, and I cannot understand for the length of time that he has been in office that I just don't know him. What I will say is that I hear a lot of things about him. I would not repeat those things on air because I don't think that's fair, and he would not have a chance to defend himself. What I will say is that I sense that Larson may have a relatability or a likability issue with people who do not know him. I have voted for people who I had not met and were not familiar with, but I was sold on them. I liked them. Larson seems like the kind of person that you could know him, you could get to know him and like him if you got to know him. But if you do not know him, you may be a little indifferent. He may be a little bit difficult for the common voter, the proletariats among us, to relate to. And so therein lies the likability issue. I think other than that, Larson J checks all of the boxes.
So random acts of flowers, the near-death experience, those things aren't enough to sort of make him a little more human.
Are Larson J's issues and Larson J's successes, does that have anything to do with my household, my family, my overall happiness? No. But they are statements about Larson J. I get that. I'm saying, as it relates to me, the voter, that doesn't matter to me nearly as much as it matters to him telling us.
Well,
Again, and that's what the campaign's for.
Yes.
The campaign is to get out there and meet the citizens of Knox County, which I'm sure he'll do probably every day between now and Election Day.
I don't doubt that. I do not
and
doubt that.
let's keep in mind too, he is an at-large county commissioner. So the majority of Knox County has voted for him to serve a seat that every single person in Knox County can vote for, much like the county mayor. The election's not till 2026, so he's got a really good runway to address some of those issues that Michael brought up. If there are people that don't know him, did not vote for him, did not recognize his name on the ballot when he was an at-large county commissioner, well, he's got more than a year to make up some ground, and he's got quite the war chest to do it. How much does he have $500,000?
I don't know a figure.
Okay.
At
He's
last
got
check,
quite-
it was over 280,000. I'm sure it's grown
We'll round
since
up.
then.
Okay.
Yes.
He has a significant war chest to do that sort of outreach that he needs to do to reach more voters.
All right, we'll have to see. And let me ask you very quickly about Betsy Henderson, the embattled school board chair, saying, hey, I really am actively considering a run for county mayor. Do you think she would have a shot at this, given everything going on right now, and against Larson J?
Well, I think she'll have to raise a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the question is she in a position where she can raise that amount of money? And the interesting thing, and I haven't discussed with Larson his particular viewpoint on vouchers, but we all know that Betsy is quite supportive of vouchers. And it'll actually, and I think in a way, will set up a local opinion poll on vouchers in our community. Are they popular or are they not? If someone who's so pro-voucher gets on the ballot, we'll see how many people actually vote that way. So it would be an interesting race.
It would be a real test to see how Knox Countyans view vouchers, because that is the distinguishing issue for her. That is what's gotten her a lot of press and publicity and has kept her name in the news cycle. Now, the risk of doing that is you lose and you show that vouchers aren't as popular as you think they are. What we know is polling across the state shows that vouchers is not real popular, and we can extrapolate that to the county and say, well, it's probably not very popular in the county. But if we have a county mayor's race where the main issue that distinguishes the candidates in the Republican primary is vouchers, and the pro-voucher candidate loses, that's a referendum against vouchers.
The Friday afternoon visit where Governor Bill Lee comes and puts his arm around Betsy Henderson right in front of WATE's cameras, that will be a difference maker for Betsy Henderson in the race, regardless of what Larson J is doing right now. The governor is very pro Betsy Henderson. That's a big, big deal.
All right, speaking of the governor, we're going to hear from him, but on a slightly different matter. So much more to come on Tennessee This Week. Stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. You know, on Thursday, President Trump signed an order, as you know, to dismantle the Department of Education. Governor Bill Lee was there in Washington and spoke with our D.C. bureau after that order was signed. Let's listen.
We are prepared to be a partner with the president, with Secretary McMahon, as they move the authority, really, and the power and the issue of educating children from the federal government to the states. Well, I think what will actually happen is this decision will mean that the state has more funding. This federal dollars that have come to the states have come with barriers and strings attached, bureaucracy, really. Now those dollars will be freed up to flow to states to use in the way that they see best for their children.
All right, now let's bring back our panel of pundits to talk about this. I was watching your face during those remarks, Courtney. What do you think?
Lori, this is tough because, you know, we are up here and we pundicize on a lot of things, but this particular issue I have personal experience with and a personal interaction with. My son has a disability, he's autistic, he has an individualized education program. And because of that, the Department of Education is extraordinarily important to me, to him, and to our family. When the governor talks about returning education locally into the states, the state is already in charge of that. Local governments are already in charge of that. How we educate our children, the curriculum we choose, is the responsibility and completely up to the discretion of local and state government. The constraints that he's talking about with funding directly impact my son and the more than 8,000 children that have individualized education programs in Knox County. Because some of those constraints are you have to use this money for supports and services to provide children with disabilities their educational rights. And so that is infuriating for me to hear the governor of our great state say that the constraints on some of that funding doesn't matter. That shows me that the Department of Education is absolutely important because we need those fundings to be designated to support children with disabilities. It can't go to the states for the states to then say, you can do whatever you want with this.
Correct.
Most of the programs that come out of the Department of Education come from issues like Courtney had, where a state or a local government is not living up to their obligations under various laws. And think that, I'm not so sure that all the money that the federal government is putting toward education is actually going to come back to the states. I think it's going to get dogged in the great cutting of the federal bureaucracy. And so I don't know that every dollar is going to come back to the state for them to distribute the way they like. It's one of the things that bothers me is they talk about the test scores have gone down or haven't gone up since 1978. And that's not accurate at all. If you look at the data, the test scores were going up until the pandemic. The pandemic has tilted all the score results down. And, we haven't recovered from that across the country yet. But to say that the Department of Education was a total failure because of test scores is not the way that is not accurate information. It basically, you remember last year the state of Tennessee was going to decline the federal monies from the Department of Education, saying that that there were too many barriers, even though in committee meetings in Nashville they couldn't identify a single one of those barriers that they didn't like. So to me, it all gets down to the federal government told me how I could make our students use which bathroom during school times, and I don't want that to happen. So now it's going to go away. Maybe it still has to be approved by the federal government, or the Congress has to do away with a agency like that. Then I don't know if that's going to happen, but it certainly will be scalped. It certainly will not be the same thing that it was.
Right. And before we
yesterday.
came on the air, the president said the Department of Health and Human Services would oversee funding for special needs and children with disabilities.
But then it's, if we're just shuffling the deck, what's the point? And a lot of these federal laws that protect our students' educational rights, like the Individuals with Disability Education Act,